Bengals, camp cuts, roster breakdown. We're going to get into that coming up next on the Wincinnati Podcast.
Yes. Hello, world. We got a special show as always. TJ Houshmandzada, Jimmy Chase, Coach Jimmy Burrow.
How do you balance being a professional athlete and family obligation? These are top 5 Bengals of all time.
All time, man. Yeah. Shock the world.
Welcome to the Wincinnati Podcast. I am your host, Ace Boogie. He is your co-host, Zim. Zim, say what's up.
What it do? Hello, world.
Hello,
we're
world,
back.
For sure. We
are back. Whole lot of orange, New Stripe City, Wincinnati. We're back. Today was a very important day. We're gonna get into these roster cuts and stuff. A lot of snip action. A lot going on in the Bengals community today. A little bit of everything, man. I am excited to do this show after talking to a bunch of casuals online all day. I look forward to talking to you fine men and women in the crowd tonight.
Definitely. If you guys are following us on Twitter, follow the Wincinnati Pod on Twitter. Also follow Zim at ZimHude, all one word. Also follow me at New Stripe City. That way you guys can partake in the Twitter spaces. I was in and out today, keeping up with the Bengals community on the cuts and things of that nature, which is what we're going to get into today, because the Bengals, they pretty much have finalized. They haven't completely finalized the 53, but we'll give you guys some of our cut down reactions. And then there are other players from other teams that might have been cut loose. So we'll give you guys who we will be watching on the waiver wire and who we think the Bengals should bring in. And then we'll talk about analyzing this roster and looking at how these revelations are coming from this Bengals roster coming up next. All right, let's get down to the cut down day reactions. Who do you think, Zim, won the roster battles that we had on our current roster?
That actually, like, just straight up won them? Well, I mean, I guess one is Volson, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Volson definitely, we would expect be entrenched as a starter. Now, I will say, I think the last depth chart, which you shouldn't really put too much stock in, didn't have him listed as a starter, but I think all indications are that he will be the starter when they have that depth chart. But yeah, you are right in terms of the offensive line. The guy that was on the outside looking in was Lamont Gilliard.
The one I'm looking at right here though has Volson over Carmen.
Okay.
This is the last updated one. Joe Burrow, Joe Mix. I put this on my Instagram probably about like 2 hours ago. Hayden Hurst over Drew Sample, Jonah Williams over Deontay Smith, Cordell Volson over Jackson Carmen, Ted Karras over Trey Hill, Alex Capel over Adeniji, Lyle Collins over Isaiah Prince. Then you got Trey Hendrickson. Next up, Osai. Don't know if you all heard this, but Kareem and Cam Taylor-Britt both go to short-term IR, won't be back for 4 weeks at the minimum. Then you got DJ Readers of the world, Josh Tubal. We all know Shelvin was going to get dropped. Well, we all didn't know that, but you know that
I kind of felt like Shelvin was.
I know you did. I remember I was thinking that Shelvin probably could just because of where he was drafted, but that last preseason game was brutal. To watch a 350-pound man get pushed back like that, I mean, I thought that was crazy. Delonte Hood gave up 196 yards. We were looking at PFF earlier. Gave up 196 yards throughout the whole duration of preseason. Trenton Irwin is a surprise, I thought. Thaddeus Moss, I know he's been a fan favorite. The biggest one out of all of them was the Kendrick Pryor one, at least for me. And so that was one that I thought was crazy. I thought the running backs was really crazy too, because instead of keeping 3, they elected to go 4. And the 4th, is Travion Williams, who I really feel as though is like running back 3 of some sort. I really think that they're going to get funky and get real busy with Chris Evans. I think everybody might get a little bit of what they want. Not only is he going to be a kick return specialist, I think that they won't be scared to put him in the slot or get him out wide in different sets. I think his catching skills are just at that level where you can't look at him as a traditional running back. And the depth chart carrying 4 and then only carrying 6 at wide receiver. I mean, it just, the writing's on the wall for like, this is what I think they're going to do. I also think it's wide open for them to bring somebody in.
No, for sure. I think it's, in terms of the roster, I would look at, like you said, you mentioned Trevion at the running back, beats out Jaquez Patrick for that last spot, and possibly beats out Lassiter or Pryor, right? If they chose to keep more. You look at the wide receiver position, they only elected to keep 5. So there were a lot of people that thought that they would keep 6 or 7. Trenton Irwin is on the outside looking in. Mike Thomas is even on the outside looking in combination with Lassiter and Pryor. So that was interesting. Tight end, I think we were waiting for someone to step up at that position. They elected to pretty much keep Drew Sample and keep Mitchell Wilcox. So that Moss loses out on that aspect. And I think Rigg was the other dude as well.
Yeah.
Like he ended up getting cut. You talked about the Shelvin. He ends up losing out to Tupou. And there were some other ones that were real interesting at the corner position. Our man George Allen, Allen George, actually ended up making it. So that was dope. So he ended up doing his thing.
He came in his spaces, bro.
Oh, that's lit. That's lit.
Yeah.
So
that's why y'all gotta get on Twitter.
And then with the safeties, I was surprised Michael Thomas made it, but he is a veteran. He is kind of that guy. And then you talk about the punters. A lot of people were upset that Drew Chrisman was cut in for our guy that was on the show as well at the punter position, Kevin Huber. So he makes it. And then I think also the long snapper was held on to our guy there with Clark Harris. So there were a lot of little battles, but were there any surprise cuts or anybody that surprised you that made the team?
That made the team? No, just surprise cut. I really thought that they would carry 6, and I just thought Pryor would be one of the 6. Them going 5 is crazy to me. I just feel like they're leaving the door open for something. And if you guys, I don't know when you're watching this. I'm hoping you're watching this live because I feel like that's the best show. But there are some guys that were released. Some guys were terminated. Some guys were waived. But, you got Preston Williams. You got Bowden from Kentucky. You got Tyler Johnson, surprise cut. So there are some wide receiver names that are out there that kind of flood up the market. Most of the news of the world might be on the way out the league. We're not sure, but these are guys that were released that I feel like at the very least could come in and battle some of these dudes and increase and bolster our depth, especially if you think about how guys want to get that last paycheck or get a situation that works out favorable for them where it's less pressure. And Bengals, I think, there's 2 different types of wide receivers or 2 different types of tight ends. It's a tight end or wide receiver that, is looking to extend their career. There's also another one that just says, I need to get in a winning situation to better my career and get me a check that way. So there's some younger guys that might be vying for more playing time. There's some older Rob Gronkowskis of the world that might just say, I want a ring. So I'm never ruling it out until it's over.
Yeah, I think for me, in terms of surprises, I mentioned one earlier, Michael Thomas. I didn't expect them to keep that many safeties. I think they ended up keeping 12 DBs. So that was a little bit of a shock to me. Outside of that, I don't really see too many big shocks there. I didn't think that they were going to cut Michael Thomas, which he could be on the way back. So I would probably say that was a little bit of a shock. But when you're talking about the strongest position on the roster, I could see why they would go light there. Trevion, I don't know, man. They love Trevion. Always felt like he was going to potentially make the roster from that standpoint. But no, I don't think that there were any surprise additions. Now, obviously, there were some roster movement that they kind of use with guys that are going on IR. So essentially, this isn't set in stone. So there could be some guys that might have made it for now that could potentially transition later, or guys that could come in a little later as well. Was there anybody that you were surprised that was cut?
Pryor, I think Shelvin is a guy, like when you think about like the old regime, I think I think I would have been looking at, and you're talking about just strictly Bengals, right? Man, cutting that around the league.
Bengals,
yeah,
just strictly Bengals.
Yeah, like the old regime, I think would have held on to him. I thought Trenton Irwin, if you don't go 6, I thought was a little whatever. I thought Drew Chrisman was going to finally beat. I thought he was going to beat out Huber. The long sniper, Cal Adamitis. I felt like that could go either way. I thought one of the guys that had some really strong reps in that game, I thought he would, probably go to practice squad. But the tackle, Devin Cochran, I thought he had some really good push in that last preseason game. I know fan favorite Thaddeus Moss. It wasn't a surprise. This is what we've been saying all off season. Is like we're bringing back the same exact starting lineup. Like, don't know what people don't understand about that situation. It's like from a preseason standpoint, we didn't even want starters to play at all because you already knew to like think about it. It was 2 roster battle spots. It was left guard and punter. And I feel like we figured out the left guard like weeks ago, like Volson, the writing was on the wall, and then the punter, you had to, kind of see it. I mean, other than that, like what was the other roster battle? Like cornerback, like Eli really solidified like what he was doing early in camp. And I just thought he looked really good the whole entire camp. I know he had a couple bad reps or bad, plays against Jamar, but who the hell doesn't?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Another one is people are asking, are we surprised that Browning didn't beat Allen? No, I feel like because he was in the favor of Joey B, that was always going to guarantee him a roster spot. I always thought in my head that it would have to be him trying to push to be that third quarterback. And, some teams do the 3 quarterbacks, as we've seen in Pittsburgh. We'll have to see if they end up trying to trade Mason Rudolph. But, some teams end up only keeping 2. I thought that he did very well in terms of pushing them, but I think what Joe Burrow is looking for in his QB2 is more of a mentor, more of a guy that's been there. So it wasn't too much of a surprise for me. Do you feel the same, or were you surprised?
I wasn't surprised at all. When the few times that we kind of see Burrow like outside of like, everyday Bengal stuff, he's usually with like Brandon Allen. I thought when he came back, very close. You hardly ever saw him see videos outside of Brandon Allen. He feels really comfortable with him. I thought Brandon Allen talked to the media when Joe was out with the appendectomy. I'm not going to say that correctly. When he was out with the surgery, he was fielding questions, and he was like, "Hey, look, my job is just to replicate what Joe does. Whatever Joe wants to see, that's what I'm doing." And I mean, I just felt like they're linked in that regard. It does worry me from a talent standpoint, much like 94.5% of the NFL. If your starting quarterback goes out, your season, probably your Super Bowl hopes are out the window. So I just thought they had opportunities to maybe go get a backup quarterback, especially like if it's just a 1-year type of situation. They never really did anything with it. So, it leads us as fans to put a lot of hope in Joe, much like any other franchise. Like, you got a big star quarterback. That's the guy that's going to take you to the promised land. So I do think that there's some guys that I would have liked to see, but it didn't happen that way.
In terms of the trenches, they decided to go heavy in the trenches. They kept 10 offensive linemen. They kept 10 defensive linemen. Was that a surprise for you?
The offensive linemen, yes, because I just thought that they would be actively going to get someone. What it did show me is that I think they thought like if an Adeniji or a Prince or somebody like that hit the waiver, I mean, like, hit the free agent line or whatever, like they just thought that people would be scooping them up. Like, it's just like I've been saying, like, I think as fans, we think that these guys are somewhat not really that good, but I think there's like 31 other teams that are looking at some of these guys like Isaiah Prince and just saying, I can work with a guy that tall, that frame, those arms. Adeniji, I can work with that guy, like in that's a proven guy. We got tons of film on him. We could do something. And I think the Bengals are cognizant of that and saying, like, if this guy gets released, I get it. As fans, we don't have high stock in some of them guys, because we know what the offensive line was or whatever. I just think that if I were selling him to other teams, there are like 8 teams that I could tell you right now that have unknown entities starting for them. And that in itself is a variable that a lot of people don't want to go against. And I think knowing what you got, like the Bobby Harts of the world, like knowing that you got a guy that knows what it's like to play in the NFL is a very valuable thing to a lot of teams. So I just thought that if they thought that they were going to release it, they wouldn't have made it to the practice squad. The defensive line kind of shot me a little, not really, no. I mean, we knew, like, you know, I'm trying to make it interesting, but I mean, I feel like we all knew this. I was talking to my man A-Mac in the Spaces today. I was like, who you think we should be? He was like, I don't even care, dog. Just get me to opening week. And I'm like, but we gotta get the depth. He was like, I don't care. Let's roll. You know, and I feel like the Bengals been like that since we left the Super Bowl. Like the one person was like, what, Bates? When we were trying to figure out like when is he gonna come. But outside of that, it's like all our guys are back. All the dudes that they said that they didn't value, all those linebackers, they all came back. The Osi's of the world, they all came back. Wyatt Huber, he retired early. I don't think he would have made the cut if I was being honest. Like, we just knew what we were going to do.
Yeah, I think for me, I wasn't too surprised on either side of the trenches because I feel like with those guys, they are guys that they're familiar with, but they didn't really have any competition, in my opinion, to unseat them, right? Like you had a competition between Jackson Carman and Cordell Volson, right? But both of those guys were likely going to make it. Ben Brown, I think, would have been the only potential threat. He goes down with an injury, even though our boy ended up having a pretty solid season from that aspect. The backup center, his name escapes me right now. Trey Hill, thank you. I was gonna say Trey Smith, but I'm like, it's not Smith. That's the guy that I wanted as well. But Trey Hill,
we had a Trey Smith. We be talking about, hey, did you get your hotel for the Super Bowl yet?
You said that who get the hotel for the Super Bowl?
I was saying we had Trey Smith. We be talking about, hey, did you already book your hotel for the Super Bowl?
Oh, for sure. But Adeniji, I think he turned it around when they switched his position. Like when they had him in at guard, I think he was kind of on the bubble, but I honestly liked when they put him at tackle. He looked a lot better, way more comfortable. So I think from the position that they were in, and a lot of people were talking about Deontay Smith, I didn't think that even though he struggled, I didn't think he was going to be a guy that they would walk away from. So I think they knew what they had. They wanted to see where the chips fell with the offensive linemen today, and we'll see what happens there. D-line, I love what they did because I honestly thought between Khalid and Gunter, that was going to be like, all right, which one is staying? And I think that they figured out a way to keep both of them. So I thought that was pretty dope, as well as Cam Sample. I think that he did solid in this offseason. So I think with the D-line, I wasn't too surprised with who they kept. Like they kept, I feel like, some of their stronger guys, some guys that really didn't have much of a gap in between them in terms of talent. Like all of them showed flashes. So I feel like they kept the right guys. It sucks for Noah Spence because it looked like he was like having a hell of a off season, but with the age, I think the potential for Noah Spence is already pretty much capped. And I feel like with some of these other guys, whether it's Gunter, whether it's Kareem, whether it's Sample, you don't know what that potential is there. So unfortunately for him, they had to walk away from him, but I think he did ball out this preseason. But we're going to go ahead and get into
Gunter got a hell of a motor on him. Gunter got a hell of a motor on him. Yeah, I feel like one of the keys, before we get into the question, one of the keys that, I learned this past season that I tried to go against the grain of, and you can't escape it. Willie tells us this all the time. Football is won in the trenches. And I think that the Bengals, from a defensive line and an offensive line standpoint, are saying, look, no matter what, we're going to make sure we got a healthy rotation on our defense and on our offensive line. We're going to work with all the guys that we got, and maybe we can pick up a guy or two, but we're not going to come into there and wonder where's the depth at or where the piece is at. We have to have guys behind our current lineup, and we're not going to leave any of that. Like they're so far down the waiver order at 31. It's like, even if you saw a guy that you like, he's probably not going to make it to you. Like, you have to trade for it. Now, behind the scenes, I don't know if they opted to go trade for one of these guys, but it didn't happen, like just now. So I was told earlier too that somebody told me that Quentin Spain was offered a chance to come and compete, and he turned it down. That's what they're saying. That's the rumors that were said online earlier. I don't know if there's any truth to that.
That would be crazy if so, because I think I would definitely take Spain game back for sure. We'll have to see.
I don't think, but Spain game wouldn't beat out Volson though.
I don't know. I think Volson definitely showed it, but I think Quentin Spain last year, I think a lot of people forget because of the Aaron Donald play. Quentin Spain last year was like one of the best linemen. I'd probably say he was the second best lineman after Jonah on the team, right. But I do think that it would have been a battle. I don't think it would have been like decisive either way for Spain or for Volson. I think for Volson's, though, his development, you don't want to stunt his development with bringing in a vet that could potentially, keep him from having reps. And I think like by that time it was, what were we in, preseason game 2, 3 or something like that? Like by then you had to see.
You talking about when he did the bat signal?
Yeah, when we did the bat signal. Or did you do the bat signal or Ryan did the bat signal?
Ryan did the Q signal. When Q unleashed his signal on all of Cincinnati, like he was mid-game watching it and saying, what you guys need.
I guess for somebody like Spain, just playing devil's advocate, he's like, I just had the best season of potentially my career last year, and you're asking me to compete. He might have taken it as a slight, but I don't know. I don't want to speak on a rumor. I don't know what was offered.
Right.
I would hope that, it seemed like he wanted to come back, but who knows? But we got a question here. LeVar Hollis, why 5 receivers? Why not Pryor at the 6th receiver? For me, I'm probably in the minority on this. Like, I love Kendrick Pryor. I love Lassiter. But I just feel like you already have these 3 guys behind me. You've got a 4th guy in Stanley Morgan that they love. That's always going to be in there for special teams. Like, for the most part, for me, when are you actually going to see those guys on the active roster unless it's on game day, unless it's going to be like as an inactive? And I think because Pryor, from a standpoint, might have been somewhat limited on the special teams aspect, where he's kind of like Auden Tate, where he can be that receiver, but, what does he offer in terms of special teams? I think that is something that may have handicapped him. But I also think it's because they feel like they love Pryor, they love Lassiter, but I think they feel like these are guys that they can stash on the practice squad and still have a good chance of keeping them or bringing them up whenever one of those guys comes up. And then you talk about it, like we talked about it earlier. If you have a decision between some of the guys that were cut today, I know some people were talking about the kid from the Bucks. Some people are talking about OBJ. Johnson. When it comes down to those rosters, that wide receiver is a strength. I'm not so sure about the other aspects. Like I always said this, if you're telling me that I'm going to keep 6 to 7 receivers and I'm only going to keep 5 corners, I am not comfortable with that, especially with Cam Taylor-Britt going into IR for 4 weeks, right? Like, so then I really only have 4. So for me, I feel like I could get away with stashing those guys and bringing them back up. Yes, that is true. Teams could be lurking, but there's a lot of guys that are available. A lot of guys were lurking from the Eagles for that receiver. So, like, I feel like there were a lot of guys that were released that people may have on their radar, I guess I would say, more so than our guys. So I think that's why they did it. Zim, you might be on the opposite of this argument. How did you feel about them not keeping 6 receivers or keeping Pryor?
I think they felt like if so many wide receivers probably going to be released, that I think they can get away with the Pryor because he was a UDFA. If he was playing like that and he was like 6th round, 7th round, this wouldn't even be a thing. Like he'd be on the roster like right now. The fact that he was a UDFA is the only reason why I think they could slip him by. I think because they knew that they were going to put Cam Taylor-Britt on IR. Alan George, now is up, and Alan George earned it. You want to talk about a guy that shout out to Bengals Post who interviewed Alan George right here on the Wincinnati Pod. I don't know I'm sure someone probably else interviewed Alan George, but one of the first ones was my man Mon and Jake. Make sure you guys check out their show on this channel too, because that was the first look that I think a lot of people got at Alan George. So I just thought that was really dope to watch that story, knowing how good of a young man he is. I've talked to him a bunch of times and what a cool customer he is, and his background and everything. I met his best friend, all these different things. It's such a great story. And I told him the other day, I said, man, I don't know the situation with CTB, but you didn't have anybody on the outside of Trey Flowers. So you had to bring somebody back. Jalen Davis was the backup slot. So I didn't see a world where he could make it if you're telling me that Cam Taylor-Britt has this surgery. I do want to say this, though. As those clips was rolling, this is the same thing I tell people about George Pickens. I don't care who it's against. I don't care if it's the third string, the fourth string, the fifth string. Anybody making catches like how Kendrick Pryor was making in that preseason, it does not matter. That translates to the actual regular season games. Those are all contested catches, whether it's a bum contesting it or somebody else contesting it.
What if it's Jalen Ramsey?
I mean, I think that's a unicorn type, situation where you're like, okay, but I mean, bro, he was making some.
He was doing his thing though.
He was not only was he getting separation that you want to see, he was high pointing the football, making miraculous catches, and I don't really remember him like having like many drops or anything at all. So I remember Lassiter having some drops, but
for sure.
And so Lassiter, you knew you could stash him. Prior, I just think them having 5 wide receivers and then going 4 running backs is super intriguing to me, because now the OBJ thing, I know teams like the Bills cleared out $5.6 million cap space and all these different things, which I think OBJ might be somewhere around that or whatever. I don't know. I just think it's very intriguing now that you got that. And I think there's a guy, and we've had hints at it all season, that they could probably go and get a guy. So it's super intriguing. And like I said, the utilization of Chris Evans, I think, is really cool. But Alan George making this roster is a testament to say, if you do everything right, ball out. I mean, he balled out against the Rams.
Yeah, bro.
You know what I mean?
Shout out
that Rams practice, bro. He had like 4 PBUs.
Because I remember the first game and there was like some adversity. And you play corner, I play corner. Corners are always gonna get beat. And I said this when it happened. Like, you're always gonna get beat, but it's how you bounce back. Like, you see how not Allen, but our boy Hood got beat, and he continued to get beat. Then it was in his head, and it was in his head, and then that's when you're in real trouble. But you got to be mentally strong to bounce back. And I feel like ever since that first game, he just was playing lights out. Like you said, you talk about the Rams practice, you talk about what he did in the game. It just seemed like there was one game I was watching. I don't know if it was the Giants game, but he just kept flashing like every single time they would try him, pass breakup, incomplete. He'd come up in the run game and make the tackle. I'm like, okay, this dude.
By the time we got to that Rams practice, and it was just Alan George. Trey Flowers made a bunch of plays too, but I was like, oh yeah, this dude is the real deal. And I know, like, even if it was the Rams with McVay or something, I was like, somebody gonna scoop this dude. So the Cam Taylor-Britt thing, is super unfortunate. I want him, to play. I want Cam Taylor-Britt to have a normal rookie season or whatever. And I think it sucks about the core injury, because it could generally those injuries take like 6 to 8 weeks. So we're gonna see how it ends up.
No, for sure. And someone mentioned in the comments, they talked about Mike Thomas is going to be back. So technically, I guess it will be 6 receivers. But Empress K here asks, do you see improvement in Brandon Allen? I do, but is it enough? Yeah, I'm going to just be real, man. Nah, I didn't really see it that much. I think there was one game where I think we waited and they had him all the way into the third quarter. And it wasn't until that third quarter that he started to show something. But is it enough? I mean, at the end of the day, you hope that Brandon Allen is never in the game, right? I think we all hope that, right? So is it enough for him to mentor Joe, break down things, help him prep for the week? Sure. I think it's someone that Joe Burrow is comfortable with. But if it's, as Zim kind of said earlier and people have alluded to, if you're in a situation where he has to come in, you aren't too confident in Brandon Allen. And I feel like we've seen what he's been able to do, but it's not a situation where we would feel like Pittsburgh, where if Mason Rudolph comes out, you still got, You still got Kenny Pickett. You still have Mitch Trubisky. So, like, it's not that kind of dropout where those guys are somewhat even. What do you think, Tim?
I feel like Brandon Allen and the safety Michael Thomas are like an extension of the coaching staff. I really don't even look at them like players. I looked at Ricardo Allen like the same way last year. It's like another set of eyes and another voice of reason and another person that can guide you, like in some of those things. And I think Brandon Allen, while the coach is doing what he's doing, remember Callahan's up top in the booth. Then you got the coach on the sideline calling plays, doing what he does. You got Brandon Allen right there telling Joe, like, hey, these are different things, like just pay attention to some of the mic'd up stuff or whatever. Like Brandon Allen is almost like an extension of the coaches too. So I really don't even like if there were to be like anything happen to Joe or something like that, I then think the Bengals go out and go get, whoever, depending on how the season was going or whatever. But honestly, I just look at it like it's just another coach that's actually like suited up in a uniform. And the same thing with Mike Thomas, the safety.
For sure. We got 135 people watching right now. We appreciate that. Please be sure to like this video and hit that subscribe button, or else you might think that the Bengals will lose week 1 to the Squealers. Like, do you really think that? If you're not subscribed, do you think that? So I'm going to give you guys 5 seconds. Hit that subscribe button. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, if you're not subscribed, you're probably on Twitter somewhere showing highlights of George Pickens pushing somebody, which really doesn't matter in all facets of football. But if you have hit subscribe, you're a part of Who Dey Nation. You're a part of Wincinnati, so we appreciate you. But our man Robert here says, if he clears waivers to us, should we take a flyer on Leatherwood? Think Coach Pollock can get something out of that guy? Man, so this is what I say about Leatherwood. I was on the Leatherwood train, I think it was about a year ago. I was on it heavy, right? Like, I was like, all right, well, we can get Chase and Leatherwood. Yeah. Go look at them Leatherwood pressures and no sacks, boy, because when I used to build up arguments for Jackson Carman, I would always point to Leatherwood. Now, that's not to say that he's in a situation where he can improve or something like that. But I think I would definitely take a flyer on him because he has potential, but he has to be coached up. But you might see some more of the same stuff that you've seen with Jackson Carman. Maybe it needs to be a position change or something like that. But for me, I would, hell yeah. Any lineman that is young, has potential, we could add to the trenches, I definitely would take a flyer on him. What about you, Zim?
Absolutely not.
That's what I want.
Absolutely not. There's not enough guys. Listen, the most valuable thing to an NFL franchise is the leverage of a 4-year contract of a player. If a team felt so strongly against somebody that they would take the number 17 pick and just say bye-bye, walking papers, eat the dead cap, how bad out of favor. And then when you read the tweet by Tom Pelissero, the thing is, it's such a demon time tweet. I wish I had it pulled up, but the thing is, they tried to shop them and they got 32 no's. That means that not only did the 31 teams sell them no, then they tried to trade it back and sell it back to themselves as the 32nd team, and even they came back around to it again and said, absolutely not. We won't even do it again.
Do you think that's because he could be half or cheaper, or do you think it's just because they just don't want him?
Sure, it's always going to be that it could be half or cheaper, but the people that would be looking at him and saying,
does that mean he would clear waiver? I'm not I don't know if you know or not.
I don't know if it's a termination.
You kind of take over that contract.
If it's if it's a termination or a waive, it's two different things because then you have 24 hours, and I don't know that part of it. Ryan, you had to send me the paperwork on that. But my point is this: anybody that's really willing to do that, I just can't imagine. The other teams are looking and saying, "Sure, we'll take a flyer on it, but I'm not giving you any draft capital to take on it. If I can get to them in the waiver wire, then sure." I know people were saying, let's trade Carman for him or something. I don't know. I don't think that's the craziest idea I've ever heard. It is crazy as hell, but, okay, let's swap out or something like that. But aside from that, I wouldn't turn my nose up if he could come to us and help us out, sure. but I wouldn't give up anything for him. It would
be
just
tough,
be like
a tough ask at this point, right? Like camps already happened, preseason's already happened. So like, what time?
Talent is talent. I mean, talent is talent. I think he would beat out. You know, I don't know. I don't know where he will fall on. You know, like it's not like now like the kid like Alex Lindstrom or somebody like that. I think he would 100% give Trey Hill a run for his money as a backup center, and he has guard potential or something like that. There's guys all over the league that I watched get that axe today that I would love, like DeMario Edwards or whatever his name is, the interior 3 tech. I mean, shoot, he had 2 or 3 sacks last year, but I loved him coming out of Florida State. There's some guys out there that I feel like the Bengals could use for sure.
Yeah,
Leatherwood isn't one of them.
It's tough, like you said, for them to close the door after 1 year. It almost reminds me of that guy from like the Titans that they gave up on and traded, and then the team got him and cut him. So it definitely is a red flag for sure with him. We'll have to see what happens. But I think, like you said, even if it's not him, if it's the guy that the Browns just cut recently, there's some options out there, I think, for the Bengals that they could be looking at. Is it Blake Hance? Is that his name? Blake Hance or something like that, I believe.
Blake something, Hence like Hence, right?
That was a guy who kind of flashed on PFF, and a lot of them were upset that they cut him. So there's some guys that definitely are out there. But of course, our man Diddy coming through and says, do you think we should be in Rams mode, like F these picks and find a fit up for us as a basic impact player? I did hear you earlier, Diddy, in Spaces talking about F them picks. Let's just go get some guys.
Did he say that in the Spaces?
He did. I think you had stepped out for a second and he was like, you know what? I'm on that Rams time. What? I'm like, F them picks. Like, if I can go and get a star player for a draft pick, I will do it. I agree with you, Diddy. Like, in this situation, trying to run it back, now don't get me wrong. I think the Bengals went well above what I kind of expected them to do this offseason. I think what they've done is enough. So don't take this as I'm going at, the front office or anything like that. But I do feel you, like when you say, okay, is there a 3 tech, like Zim is saying, if you have questions at 3 tech, or if there's a corner that's out there, shout out to my man Eli Apple. This has nothing to do with him. This is more about, depth. What happens if Cheeto or one of those guys get an injury? He's not going to like this. CTB. I'd have to look at it, bro. Like I'd have to look at it. If I had a guard out there that was available and it was a guy that was a top 10, 15 guard, you damn right I'm sending that draft pick. Like, it just depends on the situation. Now, if it's a guy that's looking to get an extension or a contract, then in that situation, I'm like, nah, I'm not giving up a pick for a guy that's only going to be a 1-year rental. Now, that could be what you're talking about because they did that with Von Miller, but I'm kind of looking at the Jalen Ramsey kind of thing. But I guess in that sense, Jalen Ramsey got a new deal. But, I would go after one of those players in short. What about you, Zim?
I just had to see it. It's like a case-by-case basis or whatever because I really like their drafts. I think they've been drafting really, really well. And most of the known entities require like money at a much quicker pace. And like I was saying earlier in this broadcast, it's like nothing's more valuable than the leverage of the 4-year contract of a rookie. And you cannot go like that extends windows and times that you can have cohesion to have players together before they're asking for more money. And I just really value draft picks a lot. But I mean, somebody was throwing out like scenarios of like a Terrence Marshall or somebody like that. Somebody that maybe
the one that I was thinking about, and I think we talked about this when the Falcons were blowing everything up. I was like, trade for AJ Terrell. I was like, trade for him now. If they're really in blow it up mode in Atlanta, this is a dude that just got drafted in the first round. He's still on his rookie contract. That would be a situation where if they were shopping him, which it seemed like at the time they were having a fire sale, I would have been like, all right, yeah, I would give you potentially a number 1. I would probably give you a number 1 for AJ Terrell just because he's already an elite corner. He's young. He's on a rookie deal. He's got a 5th-year option. that would be a guy that I would consider.
I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world. You know, like I trust the staff if they feel like they can make it work. I mean, it's AJ Terrell, so you know, like I think it works, right? But you know, currently right now as it stands, I think that you're thinking you got to weigh in right now. You know, like as I said earlier, something happened to Joe. All these different things that you're saying, it's all for nothing. So you got to weigh that in with the ultimate, like, next 10 years is all Bengals, like, period. Like, so if you find the fine line between that and you feel like, I haven't looked at anything college, and you looked at the corners this upcoming draft, and you already know you're probably drafting a corner, then sure, make the deal happen. You wouldn't get an argument from me. So I'm kind of like in between. I was thinking more like someone like you're kind of setting the stage for Tyler Boyd turns 29. And then you're making a trade for, like they were talking about, Terrence Marshall Jr., somebody that commands like the same amount of money, somebody that's not going to be like one of the higher tier wide receivers, but will give you high results at an early stage and early in the, you know, in this project. I just thought that was a cool idea. And I mean, he wouldn't be the only one, but you know, like something like that. But yeah, I would never, you know me, I don't rule anything out. I definitely would listen and hear it out. The same thing I was looking at, like the Eagles with their safety thing. You know, if they're desperate enough, I know I want Bates for right now. But if you're sending me a first, you know, and I know I only had 1 year with this guy anyway, so now I'm coming back the following year with 2 firsts or something like that, that's a conversation that I would like to have. Like, you know, especially once you saw how good Dax Hill played. So
no, for sure. Those are definitely all kind of scenarios they could be looking at. And I think that they would bring a smile to some people's face if we were able to get an AJ Terrell or a first-round draft pick. But Zim, talk to our friends at Pierce Dental.
Yeah, I think that all these different things can bring a smile on your face. If you need a dentist, I think you all should join Pierce Dental Group, located in Cincinnati, downtown Fountain Square, where confidence starts here. You want to be able to walk into a building, walk into a place, and walk in there with your smile leading the argument or leading the conversation or anything that you have on your mind. Make sure your smile is correct. Reach out to Pierce Dental Group. You can go follow them on Twitter, Instagram, or piercedentalgroup.com and go get a free consultation, even if you aren't in the Cincinnati area. I'm going to go get my teeth worked on. Free consultation costs you nothing. They are friends of the show. If you trust me and Ace, then trust Pierce Dental Group.
For sure. So let's talk about positions to watch on the waiver wire. For me, tight end. I don't want to steal too many of them, so I'll just say tight end. What is one for you?
Cornerback, offensive line.
Facts. I had the same other two. Cornerback, offensive line. I think that those are the ones that we're looking at.
The wide receiver with only 5 does make you feel like maybe not waiver wire, like they know something. I'm hoping so. Don't you just want them to do something a little while, though, just to be like, bro, they are not playing around. Like, I want to put a little fear in somebody's heart. Like, I think OBJ going across the screen would just go crazy.
It's crazy because I was so against this originally. I'm coming around on the OBJ thing. Like, I just think if it's a situation like, remember when the Bucks brought in AB like late in the season? If it's like a situation like that, yeah, sign me up for that. Like week 10, week 11, all right, bet. So even though we're already killing the league, let's just go ahead and add this piece in now to further push us, because you got to think about it. That's when that run of tougher games is coming. It's late in the schedule, right? And so why not add an OBJ? Or you also talked about Gronk potentially, depending on what goes on with the Bucks this season. Like, I think that's just a big boost in the arm. It's a nice shot in the arm. So yeah, I have to agree with you on those. Those would be the positions that I'd be looking at.
Watch the Bucks and watch the Bills. The Bills start off with Tre'Davious White on the PUP list. Kyer Elam's going to be on the island early in the season. Ooh. Like I said, Bobby Hart's on the 53. There's some things that people aren't really talking about. Watch them. If they get off to a rough start, right? And then I said Bucks is the other team. If the Bucks get off to not a hot start and the offensive line looks dog, you know what? Then I got to think that OBJ has got to be looking at the Bengals 100%, and so is Gronk. Those are the two teams that I think are probably like in the driver's seat for that. I wouldn't rule out the Rams, but I think that the Rams' utilization of Tutu Atwell that we just saw in camp, which is now going up, and you still got Van Jefferson. That's a crowded room. If Tutu, don't forget, Tutu Atwell led all wide receivers in preseason yards last year before he got hurt. So now you're telling me Tutu's healthy. You now got the ball to go to Allen Robinson, and you got Cooper Kupp, who just got paid all that money. I don't know if OBJ is looking at that room the same way. And in the Bucs, their success, relies on, Tom Brady at all times. But Gronk has said many times he wants to play with Burrow. What are the Bengals looking at? What did Jeff Hobson write earlier today? Look for the Bengals to look at the tight end position.
Yes, sir, for sure. So other guys, potential players to make the practice squad. I mean, Lassiter and Pryor to me are locks. Maybe Shelvin, especially since he's still young. They could probably bring him back. Drew Chrisman. I think Adonis is another
guy.
Bring him
back and do what? Give him some toughness?
For sure. We'll see. I know he came in with an injury and was behind the 8 ball, so maybe they can develop or continue to develop him.
What about John Ross?
As a practice squad guy? I don't know if he would take a practice squad spot, but
what other options does he have? Where is he?
I would take him back. I think the way that it ended with how they benched him, feeling like the lack of effort, I don't know what they feel like his mental makeup is like, or if he rubs the receivers coach the wrong way. I would take John Ross back though, in a heartbeat, easily for sure.
I think John Ross in this offense will go crazy. I read another question. Somebody said, "Where will OBJ go in this?" OBJ will be the 4th wide receiver because then Trent Taylor then becomes just pretty much your special teams, punt returner, primarily a gadget guy that you kind of bring in sparingly at sometimes, but he's the 4th wide receiver at that point. And OBJ in a spread offense, which we saw them use in preseason, means that he never gets double teamed. That means OBJ getting matched up with teams that dare run a linebacker over to that side. You motion him or Hayden Hurst in any direction to dictate the coverage. You find out who is on this guy. If it's zone coverage or whatever, he's beating it because of the deep threats of the outside guys. OBJ to here would kill. It would murder.
I think it just solidifies us going back to the Super Bowl. That's why you do it. You figure the rest out later. You put the dude there. It might not go right. It might go amazing. But I feel like at the end of the day, it's similar to Tom Brady when he was stacking up when he was with the Bucs. They just found a way to make it work. I mean, they had Rob Gronkowski. They had 3 tight ends and all of those receivers and multiple running backs and still found a way to make it work. I think Joey B could do the same, and I think we would cook similar to Midwest Best Barbecue, which is coming up next.
Wings, and we got you with them on our wings. They tell me that them on our wings will make you do the grenade. Them on our wings will make you do the grenade. On our wings, come and get them on our wings. On our wings, who they gonna be? Them on our wings, and we got you with them on our wings. On our wings, they tell me that them on our wings will make you do the grenade. Them on our wings will make you do the grenade.
All right, shout out to Midwest Best Barbecue, where you guys can get your Uno wings and all kind of wings throughout the season. Before the season, we'll be there in a few weeks, so come and holler at us and stay tuned. We'll probably be pulling up there that weekend that we take on the Steelers. But let's talk about, Zim, your favorite parts of this Bengals roster. Is there any position or part that sticks out to you?
Safeties, man. I just feel like the safety, we was in there, talking to a random person that's just like, oh yeah, man, the Ravens defense is crazy. And I'm thinking to myself, bro, I will be scared to death if they really had, I thank God every day that the Ravens drafted Kyle Hamilton instead of Jordan Davis. I say that all the time because Jordan Davis would be like, what's this, Sam Adams and Saragusa or something like they would figure out something like that, right? So
for sure,
I'm good on that. You know what I'm saying? I'd rather deal with Travis Jones or whoever. I don't know, whatever. But bro, Dax Hill, it allows do y'all know how good Jesse Bates about to look? Jesse Bates is just going to be like an outfielder out there. Dax Hill and Von Bill are going to be like, you know what I'm saying? They might play 2-man looks or whatever, but they could go single one, like cover one all the time and just let Jesse Bates roam because you're not worried about Dax Hill not being able to make up ground. He could take any tight end in those areas. Von Bill people. I hate that people talk about Von Bill almost like he's like an average safety. As far as run support, he's amazing. Then when you go look at games like what he did in the Chiefs game, this is a box safety going to go make that play on Tyreek Hill on a deep crosser. Like there's not too many box safeties in the league that could do that. Them 3 safeties on the field at the same time, and then you got guys like Tyson Anderson behind that. Like that safety group is nasty, bro. I don't remember the Bengals ever having safeties like that. Do you?
Safety position is crazy. That's why I only thought they were going to keep 4. That's why it shocked me that they kept Thomas as well. I agree with you. I think they're going to be in for a lot of turnovers. I think they're going to it's going to be crazy back there. And I think, like you said too, Von Bell. A lot of people don't speak on how great of a season Von Bell had last year. Like he was playing at a whole other level last year. Those 3 dudes with Dax in the mix, like it's poison, bro. It's poison.
BBD. Talk to me too about the linebacking group too, though. That's my other group, bro. Sure. Look, I mean the North, bro. We had that conversation the other day. You know, we're not gonna go there. But Logan Wilson, Akeem Davis-Gaither looked good in preseason. Him coming back. And then you got Jermaine Pratt doing what he did. I thought Jermaine Pratt, I don't know if this is a hot take. I thought he was the best linebacker in the Super Bowl. I know we talk about Logan Wilson a lot.
He went crazy doing that.
Jermaine Pratt was going psycho mode in that game. He went psycho mode in the playoffs too.
The Raiders game, a lot of people forget he was the one that sealed the deal.
Right. You got that. You got Marcus Belling. Then think about Johnston is there and holding it down until Bocce comes back. The linebacking group is nasty too. When's the last time you said that as a Bengals fan too?
It's been a while, bro, because I used to hate the linebackers until they did this renovation. So yeah.
Only legit linebackers you could really talk about for real is Odell Thurman, Burfict, and Malaluga. And Malaluga at the tail end of his career was nothing.
Yeah, he was, they was going in on him at the end. But I'm with you. I think Logan and Pratt, this might be the best. This might be the best since we had like Odell Thurman and like Brian Simmons.
Oh yeah, somebody did say Takeo. My bad. I'm sorry.
Takeo too. Yeah, Takeo was a dog as well. We're never gonna forget about Takeo at all.
I mean, all right. So let's. I'm a temper my stuff, but I really like this linebacking group
for sure. No, I'm with you. So shout out to them. We're gonna need them week 2. As we take on the Dallas Cowboys, Ezekiel Elliott, and that brings up our partners, Fans of Cincy. They are going to pretty much book that entire trip for you. So if you're like me and you wait to the last minute or you look up and the prices are crazy and you got to figure out how to navigate everything, Fans of Cincy is for you. They're also coming down my way to Florida. So if y'all want to come and visit me in the FLA, I'm going to be at that game. I'm sure Zim is probably going to be at that game to watch the 2 GOATs take it on. You can go there. You can go to New Orleans. You can get you some gumbo. You can get you some etouffee. And then you can sit back and watch the Bengals take on the New Orleans Saints. You won't want to miss that. Joe Burrow will be back there. And as I talked about earlier, the Dallas game, and they will get all of that taken care of for you for only a deposit of $200 on fansofcincy.com. If you want to go to Nashville and get some of that hot chicken that they have there and catch us put hot slugs into the Tennessee Titans once again, definitely be sure to check out Fans of Cincy today at fansofcincy.com. So also follow me and Zim on our Instagrams, on our Twitters, because we will post that. If you don't remember the link and you need a reminder, follow him at Zim Hude, follow me at New Stripe City, because we will be posting those. I have had people reach out to me already like, hey, where can I book this stuff at? So fansofcincy.com, be sure to do that. They're going to have some dope tailgating events that me and Zim are going to be a part of. So stay tuned for that. And then also stay tuned to the Wincinnati YouTube channel and the podcast that comes live at you guys every Tuesday and Thursday at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. But we have other shows as well. We got the Bengals Post with Jake and Mon. We got the 513 with my man Just Eric, who just dropped off a great video. My man G Money with the new Wincy. So definitely be sure to check that out. We're going to have content coming to you guys as soon as possible, all days, 5 days a week, 7 days a week, potentially. Who knows? We got the season gearing up. Go ahead, Zim.
Make sure you go to newstripecity.com. Didn't you just drop something today?
I did just drop I just dropped a Shiesty shirt and a Uno shirt. It's pretty dope. And also be sure to go to zemhude.com and get you that Savage Mode, which I do have on, by the way. So if you guys can see, I've been sitting down, but I got the Savage Mode. You could also get that Joey B that Zim has, as well as any of my merch at zemhude.com and at newstripecity.com.
Right. Definitely, man. If y'all like the content, love what we're doing, you want to figure out a way to support us, man, please make sure y'all check out the website, forward it to a family member or anything. That really, really goes a long way. We love putting out really good merch. And especially when we go to the games, I like taking pictures. As soon as I see somebody with a shirt on, it blows my mind. So that's something I think is really, really dope. That is a great way to connect with us and look really freaking cool at the same time.
And we put our heart and soul into this stuff. It's not going to be something that we just spent 5 minutes on and just slapped on something. So definitely be sure to check our merch out. We love to see you guys pull up in the drip. But stay tuned, and thank you guys for listening to the Wincinnati Podcast. Yes.
Hello, world. We got a special show, as always. TJ Houshmandzada, Jimmy Chase, Coach Jimmy Burrow. Time to be a Bengals
How do you balance being a professional athlete and family obligation? These are top 5 Bengals of all time.
All time? Yeah. Shock the world.
Nice job, guys.